Hey guys, we are back with another series of our behind the scenes videos, giving you all the sorts of tips, visual guides, all of that. We'll be talking this year Hasbro, places to eat, all sorts of things, map of the floor. But we're starting off with something brand new we've never done before. We are here at the convention center, obviously right in front of Hall A right now, with the help of good people here at the San Diego Convention Center. They're letting us take a look at the whole setup here, give you a little bit of idea. One question we always get are things about like the escalators and where actually on the floor and tapping in, tapping out. So this will give you a little bit a different view than we've had in the past, which we're really appreciative of. So we're starting out here at Hall A. We're going to take you around. This is an important spot for those that are able to have ADA. You'll be accessing here. You'll still have the tap in, tap out system. We'll talk more about that and the badges and all of those things later. But this is an important part of the floor for you. Sometimes people ask when they're coming from the Marriott, can they come in here and access? That is not an access point here. Go down there unless you are an ADA person. Now, as we're going through the rest of the convention center, very important to remember this year, as we're filming at least, there's a whole new scene going on with the lottery system for some autographs, some things going on with exclusives, things like that. So we'll talk about those things, but do keep in mind, as always with the visual guides, everything is subject to change. Always really important to check with everyone here, from staff, volunteers, all sorts of people as you're out there on the floor, and make sure that you are getting all of the correct information so that nothing is missed. So with that, let's go ahead and start making our way around the convention center. Okay, so in this guide, we are going to take you inside, look at kind of how the lines break down and all of that, but let's start where really the convention starts for a lot of people, is out here under the tents for Hall H, or where the everything else line is going to kind of blend in too. Now, a question we get quite frequently is how to differentiate between the Hall H line and the everything else line. Well, first off, very simply to talk about what they are. It's amazing that this question comes up, but it does. The Hall H line is simply for Hall H, and the everything else line is simply for everything else. So do keep that in mind when you see the everything else line. It is very possible it is going to stretch back into the marina area in all sorts of crazy ways. But remember, that's not all for like ballroom 20 or anything like that. That's for the floor. It's for ballroom 20. It's for all sorts of different things going on in the convention. It really is to get into the con everywhere except Hall H. So that's just kind of to differentiate. Now, Hall H is going to be situated here under the tents. So there'll be tents up here all across. I'm sure you've seen pictures before, even if this is your first Comic-Con. All sorts of stuff being able here to be able to just kind of camp out, get a little bit of shelter there. The everything else line will be hooking around it normally on the outside there. The best way, though, to just tell the difference between them is simply asking the people who are in line. I mean, after all these years, still, we're constantly asking the staff members, volunteers, and definitely the people in the lines themselves, what are you waiting for? We know Hall H, I mean, obviously everything's subject to change, but we can figure Hall H will be right here. But again, as we get out to the marina area, it's harder to tell who's in what line where. Just make sure to ask. There's going to be tons of people, and with those tons of people in line, there's going to be tons of staff members also helping. So we've got our everything else line. We'll talk about, you know, once we hit inside the convention center and the breaking point of different ways to go to the floor, ballroom 20, all of that. But one last thing, just for those people heading into the floor, do think about for the RFID, if you're a little bit taller like I am, if you're able to grab a retractable lanyard, it's kind of nice, because if you're going in and out of the floor as much as we do and heading out to the off sites and everything, constantly bending down, it's a little thing, but it's kind of nice if you just can grab one of those retractable lanyards. It helps a little bit with the stretching there. Okay, so now let's talk about Hall H and back to that, which is a huge draw for a lot of people. Comic-Con is all about Hall H and only Hall H. Hall H, where the biggest things happen, you know, the iconic pictures every year from Comic-Con, so many of them come, you know, the Avengers assembling on stage and all of that sort of thing. So with Hall H, do make sure to plan accordingly. Make sure to check out over at the SDCCblog.com. There'll be all sorts of information there as more is revealed on the schedule. They'll do an entire breakdown on the podcast about how busy they think the various rooms will be, and Hall H included in that. Because remember, as we talk about numerous times right, in this video, podcast, everything, what really matters is what is the big deal in the room. Because if the big deal in the room is at 5 o'clock, everything else is going to be busy, even if those are what you would consider small deal things. Also, never doubt other fandoms. Sometimes when we're not a fan of something, we think, oh, that doesn't have any big, you know, deal, and then it does. And so that happens quite a bit. I think sometimes in Indigo over there at the Hilton, we've seen that happen, is some of these rooms have a much bigger fandom than you realize. And so Hall H, although it's huge, it isn't able to fit everybody at the convention, and nothing close to it. At the end of the day, you're talking about that 6,000 to 7,000 people cramming in there. One last thing with Hall H as you make your way in there in the morning, I mean, they're going to process you, you're going to tap in, tap out, all the same. But once you're in the Hall H area, they've got bathrooms in there, they've got a snack bar in there, but there's not a lot of other food options. I mean, really, there's no other food options. So there is the snack bar. So plan accordingly if you're going to do a marathon Hall H day, and make sure to bring some good stuff in your backpack or whatever. 1 year, we managed to make our way into Hall H on a Saturday. It was kind of a surprise just because we only got in at 7 in the morning and we were able to make it in. And there was all sorts of cool stuff from Warner Brothers and Fox and all of that. But we did not plan to be in there all day. We thought we'd be doing our normal day of some offsite, some floor, some panels, things like that. So we ended up being in there literally, I think it ended up being 16 hours from start to finish of the tents and in there. And we were stuck like eating, you know, just the nachos and whatever couple little granola bars and chips we have. So do try to plan around that as well. So with that said, let's go ahead and make our way into the convention center and come back to that everything else line. So we're making our way to the floor, ballroom 20, anything but Hall H. We're going to be hooking around this way, going down to Hall E, tapping into Hall E, heading up the escalator, and we'll talk about what we do next. All right, so one of the big questions we get is about, you know, where do I line up to get to the floor? If I'm one of those early birds, I want to have the first crack at getting the best swag, you know, getting those exclusive lines, whatever. And so as you come up the escalators, it's going to be really clear. There's always security members, volunteer staff, always on hand helping to guide you. But the big question always becomes, do I line up over here in the sales pavilion, or do I go what used to be the secret way? I remember when we first started going to Comic-Con back in like 05 or whatever, it's like, hey, there's a secret entrance to the floor and you get right up. Well, it's not secret anymore. It hasn't been secret for a long while. It still has big lines either way. So a lot of times what we do, honestly, is we go up, see how long that side looks, see how long this side looks, and make a choice from there. That's it. If you are hooking around this way, we're right next to ballroom 20 here. So you hook around the back side of ballroom 20, you line up there. Eventually they're going to allow you in to head downstairs. That's going to enter you right by Hall H area. So if your priority and exclusives is the H area, that's going to make sense for you. We're going to do a whole separate visual guide just looking at the official Comic-Con map of the floor. So we'll kind of walk you through, depending on what you're hunting in the mornings, where's the best entry point for you. But a lot of people do prefer this entrance and sales, so I think a lot of it comes down to maybe your history at Comic-Con and again what you're hunting there. Now that being said, another thing to consider is the entry time. One of the things we always love, all these conventions we cover 40, 50 shows a year. San Diego Comic-Con is one of the very rare, maybe the most rare in this, is they really use, I always call it the in and out rule. In and out, it always advertises they open at 10:30, but the goal is to open at 10 a.m. Very similar here. They say 9:30 a.m., but usually by 9:05 a.m. we're on the floor. They're letting people in, they're getting them on the floor, and then they let the people on the first floor in. So the priority comes to the people who got here the earliest. They come up here, get in those lines, and they make their way to the floor. We've never gotten onto the Comic-Con floor late beyond that 9:30, which is huge kudos to them with as big of a show as is. It's nuts to think that, again, compared to all the other shows that we cover, it's really crazy and cool. The other thing we want to point out here as we're up by ballroom 20, the ballroom 20 line out the back straight there. So we've got our glass doors down at the end there that you can enter. And also right here, saddled up against ballroom 20, we have a spot where they're going to be selling those exclusive Comic-Con bars of chocolate. So if you need that chocolate fix, a really fun collectible to pick up right here on your way to get in line or any of those types of things. So with that said, let's keep looking around. All right, we are here in the new and approved sales pavilion. We've got the new sales above us here, ready for another year of Comic-Con. Excited to check out what's going to be happening up here. Also new this year is the whole brand new lottery system. So it's going to be really interesting. And honestly, as we're recording this, we're not really sure how this is all going to shake out, of what things are going to be a lottery. As we're recording right now, it's been kind of smaller exclusives. The Mondo posters have gone up. Looks like Alex Ross, things like that. Will Hasbro be included? Funko, things like that. Not positive. We also know a lot of the signings are going to be going that way. Either way though, up here you've got all sorts of cool things going on with the autographing area, the signings. We've met so many cool, 70s, 80s actors that maybe don't have the glitz and glamour. They're not going to appear in Ballroom 20 or Hall H, but they're up here. Mike TV, the character of Mike TV, Paris Layman, who played that character in the original Willy Wonka. One time he was just up here with a stack of 8x10s at a table and he was just signing for free. And it was just cool to see this, classic actor that's, in this iconic film of Willy Wonka, and he's just up here. And those are the types of things that happen at Comic-Con, and why we always say you want to be open to new experiences here, because you never know what's going to happen. I never thought I'd get an autograph from LL Cool J, and he was just at a booth one time, and he had no line, and it was free at the CBS booth, and it was like, okay, we'll do that. So those cool experiences, and a lot of them can emanate up here. As I said, normally you have a setup up here though with Hasbro giving out their lottery tickets there to get your front of the line pass for whatever your time slot is. A variety of things, the Lego drawing up here. But again, as we are waiting, we're going to kind of see how that all shakes out, so be aware. Also picking up things like bags up here and tables. You know, one of the questions we get a lot are where are places to rest? Well, for us, the best place to rest is always outside the convention center. You know, we'll talk about that in a separate video of some great places that aren't too far away, that won't be too bad with the traffic, that you can still kind of hang out and have a good time. But up here, there's always some tables. Oftentimes we'll find some spots, and our favorite spot to sit anywhere in the convention center. They've got some great food outside, and we'll talk about that and find you some quiet spots there. All right, so we know this is a question we get all the time, and honestly, we always forget that this is a thing that people don't know about, but it is one of the most common questions is, where is the mezzanine? And quite simply, the mezzanine is where the mezzanine is. From the sales pavilion where we just were, you just walk to the back there, you head down these escalators. These are the same escalators if you're entering the exhibit hall floor in the morning there, as we talked about those two choices, same thing, but probably if you've been doing that and missing the mezzanine, it's because you're in such a hurry to grab whatever exclusive or swag there is, you don't notice this area. This is a great spot to come down. Right down here in these brand new escalators set up here all nice and shiny. Behind us there, we've got some seating areas. There is some food options over there as well. We oftentimes will grab a bite there. The big thing though, and you'll always find there's quite a few people just kind of hanging out by the glass there and just checking out the floor. It really is our favorite spot of public access to watch the con. I mean, you see these giant cosplay sets, you see what they're doing at the Marvel booth, you see what just everything, what hot toys are out there, sideshow, etc. It's a really fun spot to watch things. So you're highly encouraged to find a little time. It's funny, this is another one of those areas where we'll get people that respond after and say, oh, I missed the mezzanine again. So if you can, try to make a point to check it out on one of those break areas. Next up, we're going to talk about another break area that we like quite a bit. All right, so just outside the doors of the mezzanine, another reason we really like this level, and I guess it all kind of comes clear now why we like this area and people don't know where the mezzanine is, because it's an area that's really chill and really relaxed during the busiest time possible here at the San Diego Convention Center. All along here, there are all sorts of spots. We just sit on the floor somewhere against one of the walls over here, grab some food from one of the various food options out here, a burger, you know, whatever the sandwich is, things like that, and just hang out here. This is also, if you follow along with us on social media when we're doing our SDCC tips, we'll talk about this area of just being kind of a fun, quiet spot to be able to do things. I mean, we record podcasts out this area for our podcast channel, but we've seen Stan Lee just hanging out here, just relaxing, and there was like no one bothering him, no one, because there's like 30 people all around in this area. So it's definitely an area if you just want to kind of escape. A really nice thing about San Diego, sure, sometimes we get a hot Comic-Con, but for the most part, the weather's always beautiful here. So there hasn't been a Comic-Con where sitting in the shade out here hasn't been a great break from the floor. Now that said, as I said, in other videos, we'll talk about spots to kind of rest outside the convention center, but if you're on the floor, you don't want to take too long of a break, come up to the mezzanine, check out the view, grab some food, take a break. All right, another nice quiet spot here is just right outside of sales here. Again, you've got the tables, chairs out here, but honestly for us, just sitting on the floor is usually good enough, finding a shady spot. Now, important about here as well is the lining up for the different drawings when it comes to exclusives. I mean, traditionally, this is where Hasbro's been. Last year, they had it kind of all taped out to show you like what place to get into for what line. Now, again, we're figuring that's changing with the changes to the drawings for autographs. That said, for exclusives, not positive. One very important thing though is it is illegal to access the convention in the mornings from back here. So everybody comes into the everything else line, the Hall H line, whatever you're interested in accessing, you'll get in one of those two lines and go that way. Then you're coming up again, the escalators, all of that, deciding where to go. But if you're going for anything that there is some sort of drawing in sales or something like that, you'll come straight back here, down the stairs into wherever you hit into that line area. Again, a lot of great little food options up here. We really like the barbecue up here, and in general, again, the beautiful weather. I mean, maybe it's because we're not from San Diego that we appreciate it that much more, but the thing we like to do most at Comic-Con, outside of seeing all the amazing things on the floor, is just sometimes taking a break to take it all in and spend a half hour out here eating some food and checking out the view. All right, so you made your way down the hall. You made the choice to come back this way. Well, we've got two things going on here. Right behind Ballroom 20, we've got the tents for Ballroom 20. So if you're lining up for that panel, a lot of times some of the big TV shows are going to be taking over Ballroom 20. We'll talk more about lining up in general, but always remember that the big panels kind of dictate how busy the room is. If something at 5 o'clock is going to attract a huge crowd, it really doesn't matter what's at 10, 11, 12, etc., because everybody's going to camp out just for that. At Comic-Con, and we know these videos a lot of times are for the newbies that haven't been as much, at Comic-Con, people are really okay with camping out for things for like 24 hours, so you have to always consider that. Also, though, down this way, we talked about the option for lining up straight down there past those meeting rooms, and as it gets closer to go time of letting everybody in, it's going to get further and further down this line as security is compacting people. Make sure when you come in, if you get in this line, security has so many people coming in, they really need to keep it compact. So don't just flop down on the ground, wait for them to kind of get you situated, because they will literally move you like next to each other to get as many people as possible. Because again, a convention as big as Comic-Con, they need to use every square foot of this place. All right, we hope you've enjoyed this new look at the San Diego Convention Center here. It was fun doing a new guide for us this year, something very specific to a lot of the questions that we get year in and year out. Please follow along with the rest of our YouTube series. You can find all sorts of videos that we'll be doing for Things Comic-Con. We really try to just do videos about things that we feel that we know pretty well, so we don't really branch off into areas that we're not comfortable with. So you won't find that we do a video on everything, but we do a video on the things that we're most comfortable with. Also follow along on social media. The SDCC blog is going to have so many things. The unofficial Comic-Con blog, they're putting out like 20 articles a day as we go into the home stretch there. Make sure to follow along with them. Follow along with us. We are going to hit the convention Monday before. We always spend 8 days at San Diego Comic-Con covering the build up and all the way through into Monday morning wrapping up the con. So we'll have lots of updates there at Parks and Cons there. And make sure with our podcast, we're going to have a whole podcast series there where we're going to be answering various questions that we get on social media, all sorts of things. We'll be taking time really to go through. It's a lot more relaxed and we can take more time with things than doing a video, although the video's got the great visual guides to it. The podcast is great too. You can find it on pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast there at Parks and Cons. And lastly, all these websites outside Comic-Con is going to have all sorts of things going on all over the external parts of the convention center. You've got SDCCblog.com with all of the news there, and then over at parksandcons.com we've got all sorts of guides and things like that as well, so follow along with us. We hope that this guide's been helpful, whether you're a newbie or if you're somebody like us that's gone tons of years but you just like refreshers sometimes, or you just like looking at the convention center because it reminds you of San Diego Comic-Con. All the work that it takes to Comic-Con, we want to enjoy it to its fullest when we get there. There's a reason why it's such a special convention. Comic-Con International does a great job with it. The convention staff does a great job with it here as well. So in concluding, huge thanks to Gil Cabrera here at the San Diego Convention Center for helping us out, taking us around, giving us a tour of all sorts of fun new things coming to the convention center, and helping us just get some shots so we can help make things more visual and clear for all of you watching out there. So until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.